Hello, my name is Donnie McNichol of Team Animation, and I'd like to talk to you about stakeholder engagement. In particular, how to get into the head of a stakeholder, understand them better, and try and influence them to get a positive outcome. So, one of the things we've been involved with around in this field is we wrote with two other colleagues the RICS APM Stakeholder Engagement Guidance Note. Now, the guidance note was written for humans. It was very plain language and so on. We know that stakeholder engagement has been seen as a key success factor now in project, and numerous project reviews have indicated these human factors are absolutely key. So we drew it together. We put in a very plain English version of what were some of the key things to improve around stakeholder engagement, around communicate, consulting early and often. Remember, they're only human. Sometimes people treat stakeholders as if they're from another planet. They're not really human. They don't have feelings and so on. Just down an example, you need to compromise. You need to understand what success is. So there are various factors that are important for you when you're thinking about engaging with stake. Just thought I would introduce that because it is a very good source of reference. So what I've done is I've just shown a model there of a simple tool that we use to help people to understand and identify better with their stakeholders. So I'm going to talk through the table on the right. I'm going to talk through each of the different aspects. Initially, there's three key questions that we always ask someone to think about. So they're important. So why is it important to you and the project that you influence this stakeholder more effectively? So why have you chosen them? Why do you think you're going to get it? What is the areas of influence, and what areas would you like to influence them, and why specifically? And the benefits, what do you think you'll benefit from influencing them in a positive way? So it's getting you back to reflecting on it before you start getting into trying to understand the stakeholder. So I'm going to go through each of these aspects first. The first one is going to look at understanding somebody's communication engagement style. So just take a little bit of a step back in that first of all. We are all unique. If you have watched the video on improving communication, you'd have been introduced to the IMA diagnostic, which is a simple way of identifying people's communication engagement style. So I'm just doing a very brief overview of it. But knowing that people are all ultimately unique, each stakeholder, they make decisions differently, deal with conflict, they delegate, communicate, and so on. And if you look at those four cross sections of the tree, they all look differently from the outside, but internally they're different as well. And if you can use something to get an insight about that person, then there really are some key benefits to that. And IMA gives you, it's a very kind of outer view, it's a behavioural, it says to you about what their communication engagement style is. And I won't go into any more detail. As I say, there is a video that talks about communication in some detail in this. But what you come out with is four colour styles. So the high green, high blue, high red, and high yellow. These are all different preferences that people have. And people between non-assertive and assertive, and between a relationship focus and task orientation. So, but knowing where a stakeholder is, you can actually think, how would you modify your approach? Just very quickly take an example. If you are a high red, so very direct, to the point, want to get on and want to know what targets are, and you're dealing with a stakeholder's high blue, very personable, isn't necessarily assertive and so on, then you may have to think seriously about modifying your approach to that colour. So again, that's the first distinction. Then I'm just going to go through each of these other ones. So we've covered off the one below, the communication and engagement style. We use IMA. You could use any other tool. If you use Myers-Briggs, for example, or any other behavioural or psychometric tool, you could use that to try and assess what you think the difference is between yourself and them. Then you might want to look at what their underlying motivation is. Why is it that they are taking the opinion that they have? So if you understand someone's underlying motivation for the way they work, what they're trying to get out of the project, can be very important. Then think about personal factors. Is there anything specific that's happened that you're aware of? The project could be seen as their baby, and that's why they're putting so much energy and effort into it, maybe more than you want. There may have been a frustration with somebody on the project or previously because of what the outcome of the project is has affected the person personally. That could be one of the factors. Social, who is it that influences them? So you may not need to engage directly with the person. You might be able to go through someone else because you've got a very close relationship with them. You may have a relationship with them. And then there's the purely rational. What is it that ultimately, from a rational point of view, is important to them? Is it all about the performance figures? Is it all about the direct numbers in a business case about the project? Is there a rational aspect as well that you can identify and understand? So by getting those multiple aspects, you can really start to get an understanding. The next one is then about success. And the success is what they would, and there are some number of different models out there about what success looks like on a project, and you can use those. The Shenhar-DeVere model have got 5 categories of what success look like in a very broad sense. You can think about those and do that. That's certainly one thing that you can consider. The next one is then what you may have used in the past around stakeholder engagement mapping is around power and interest. And there's a number of different models that exist. You know, those are not the only 2 axes. You'll have seen them, the 2x2 matrix. But power and interest we find is quite helpful as to what level of power the person has to influence the project. If you will, how to make it a good day or a bad day. That's one way of thinking about power. And also the level of interest in the project and then thinking, is that the right place? Have they got too much interest or not enough interest? If they're powerful, if they're not powerful, do you actually need to be engaging with them at all? So again, you're getting another insight. And then you're thinking about the support overall that they have now and in the future. So you may say, where are they in a spectrum of totally, you know, almost from saboteur through to champion for the project? Where are they now and where do you want them to get them to? And it's useful in the tool, we've got usually about 10 divisions, and try and get someone to decide where they are and how many steps they want to move them up towards, say, from saboteur at one end right the way through to champion. You may not need to move them very much. You may only want to get them to the halfway point, which is they're neither for or against the project. They're quite neutral. And then the final point is strategy, maybe the most important one. Thinking about all of those aspects, and only one of them might be the thing that you think that's the key bit. That might just allow us to engage more effectively with the stakeholder, working out a strategy for what it is you're going to do, when, with whom, and so on. So it's quite a simple approach, but what you're doing is you're working through and thinking. We'll get a template. The template then has other aspects behind it that I've mentioned to try and help you do this, but you can just use this as a list to try and help you to think for each of the stakeholders what may help you to get better understand them. And here's some images from, we've used simulations working with Prendo on a number of occasions. This is from their stakeholder engagement simulation. Very intense way of doing, it was really intense learning opportunity, often using simulations to help with aspects of development around stakeholder engagement. Great ways for people to safely try out trying to engage with different people in different ways at different times and seeing the impact of not communicating with someone or creating a poor relationship with one and then that impacting someone else. So I hope that was of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching the video and thank you for your time.